Fair tackle, play on.
So the first test against the All Blacks has come and gone in the greatest rivalry series. Now, obviously, everybody is disappointed. I'm sure Rassie Erasmus will give the boys an absolute tongue lashing this week in the build-up for the next test. But I'm not here to give the Springboks any more of a hard time than I'm sure they're already getting from the coach and from the rest of the fans. What I want to look at is a pure, no emotions analysis of what went wrong and what went right for the Springboks, and how can they use that in the next test to try and get one over on the All Blacks and secure the greatest rivalry series. Now, we as South Africans know to never underestimate the All Blacks, and it's for this very reason of what happened on Saturday. But I think there was just a bit of complacency maybe. And I do think that that can also be attributed to the players as well as the coaches. So let's have a look at what went wrong for the Springboks. So firstly, I think although it wasn't entirely a planning thing, losing Kurtley Arendse in the first half like that due to the head injury wasn't planned at all, naturally. But having the backline shuffle so much throughout that game, you could see it manifested in it just looking awkward and people not knowing what to do in their roles because their roles shifted so many times. And I know the Springbok team has been that hybrid sort of mentality where players can play multiple different positions at any given time. But when you're already chasing a game, you want to make sure that everybody is fully knowledgeable of their role and knows exactly what they need to do. So, for example, when Andre Esterhuizen came on to replace Kurtley Arendse, he slotted into the number 12 role. Damian Delendy moved into the 13, and Jesse Creel moved out onto the wing. Now, although Jesse Creel is obviously a world-class player, he's the best number 13 in the world at the moment, he's not a wing out and out. He's an outside centre, sorry. And that means that even a single slip-up in that role allows New Zealand to get a chance. There is an example of this happening where Jesse Creel was slightly late to make a tackle, which allowed New Zealand to get their offload in onto the inside, and they scored a try from that. So we can see that these shuffles maybe just changed a lot of things. And even in the second half, when Manie came on, Andre Esterhuizen came off, and that meant that I think Grant Williams slid out onto the wing with Cobus Reinach coming on the scrum half, and Sasha moving to 15, and then Damien Willemse moving to 12. So we had Cobus at 9, Manie at 10, Willemse at 12, even though he started at 15, then Dalendi at 13, and I think Colby and Grant Williams on the wings, and then Sasha at 15. So it is a very confusing backline shuffle that they had. And I mean, obviously when we had the yellow cards, even Manie was in the scrum at one point. But anyway, it's just this kind of mixing and matching, although we should ideally like to be able to have zero changes whatsoever in the quality between the players and their positions. It's understandable to think that, you know, a person who plays on the outside centre isn't as good as the person who plays on the wing normally. Anyway, moving on, let's now look at the poor execution, which I think is the main theme for the game on Saturday, which is how many times the Springboks squandered opportunities in the All Blacks 22. I mean, there was drop balls over the line. There was just, I mean, Sasha in particular couldn't hold a ball to save his life. It was very embarrassing. There were just a lot of times where we just weren't clicking. Passes weren't going to hand. Players had to catch them standing still. Players had to take a step back. Damien Willemse trying to catch a ball out onto the wing, and he has to take a step back in order to catch it. Has no momentum, just gets shut down. And these kinds of poor executions meant we couldn't score. And obviously you can't win if you don't score. The next thing is looking at the actual breakdown and how poor our cleaning out skills were. We got absolutely hammered in the breakdown. It was much better in the first half where we were putting on a lot of pressure and we were fit and we were firing and we were ready. But as soon as we got tired, we stopped having support runners, we stopped having the cleaning out. One thing that New Zealand can always do, and I'm not saying that we should do this, but one thing that they can always do is find their support runner. So even when you think, okay, well, thank goodness we've tackled this oak, there's two guys that he could possibly pass to and pop the ball up to. We don't do that, okay? Which means that if we want to have quick ruck speed, we need to have cleaners ready to go at all times. And we just didn't. So we would get like a half gap, or Sasha would make a half break and make like 10 meters. But then he would be completely isolated. The New Zealand player would immediately go over the ball, and, you know, we'd lose a penalty and go back 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 meters. So we have to consider whether or not it's actually worth, like, yes, Sasha makes a half break and gets a few meters, or Ox makes a really good run and gets a few meters, but then our supports aren't running with them in order to clean and secure the ball properly enough. Because New Zealand, and we know this, New Zealand are the master of the dark arts in the breakdown especially. They are skirting the line of offside, potentially even going over the line of offside, but we're not talking about that now. And I think this fits into my last point under the negatives, and then we'll move on to the positives, is just decision making. I felt like the decision making was very poor. And like Grant Williams getting charged down, that was poor. Like, yes, it was the right decision, but come on, Oaks, like, you need to do better than that. You can't get charged down and concede a try. Maybe the player was offside, but still, I don't think it's fair to say it's a completely refereeing decision's fault because we chose to be silly and take so long in the ruck or whatever. But I think just decisions in general, we were losing our heads, especially as soon as we started falling that a little bit behind. And it wasn't even that bad. I think it was like the first try that New Zealand scored after half time. We just started losing our heads a lot. Like, we just were frantic. We would throw the balls into each other. We would run into each other. We would just we just lost our minds. We were not calm, we were not cool, we were not collected whatsoever. And I think that also falls into the backline shuffling confusion, because people didn't necessarily look like they knew where to be at all times. So that is an issue. But that being said, these are all things that we can work on and will work on, obviously. I think execution for the Springboks, especially for this era of the team, has been quite prevalent throughout the last 5 to 8 years, so to speak. It's been nothing new. Like, we know this, and we've sorted it out at times, but it's always seeming to be like, at our worst this is our problem, and at our best that's when we solve it. So I think we can definitely work on these things. But let's look at the positives now. Obviously the set piece, the scrum, was amazing, but coupling the scrum with the ability to score points from it, that is what we need. So going for the jugular, for the 5 meter scrum, and then conceding a penalty on their 5 meter, that was execution for us. That's it, because we put so much emphasis on our scrum. So yes, although having a good strong scrum is really nice, it's also important that we make an effort to use that in order to score points, not just to use that over and over and over again, if that makes sense. Naturally, we have experience in this area. We've played and lost against New Zealand many times, including this team. Although they are very successful, we've lost against New Zealand plenty of times between 2019 2023. We've lost to worse New Zealand teams, and we've lost to better New Zealand teams. However, we know, because I feel like we were putting too much emphasis on them, on how they were going to play. Rassie in the press conference said that they didn't expect how they were going to tackle, because they were doing a lot of like push down tackles. So you tackle the player and immediately try and get him down to go over the ball. And they were doing a lot of rips, which we didn't see coming. So I think we just completely misfired on what we thought they were going to do, as opposed to making sure what we were doing was good enough, if that makes sense. The next positive we have is depth. We have incredible amounts of depth in our Springbok squad, and that's something that we should definitely use. We aren't making that many changes for this week's squad, although I think the changes that we are making, bringing in Handré, starting Kobus, and Dion Ferree coming on the bench. I mean, that just shows how much depth that we have. And also, not to get all emotional and stuff, but Dion Ferree represents a big missed opportunity for the All Blacks. He was the main man. He was the star of the 2023 final. And so him coming off the bench should be maybe a mental tactic against the All Blacks. But anyway, the whole point of this is that we have people who have beaten the All Blacks. Handré Pollard has scored the most points against the All Blacks for the Springboks ever. So we know that people like Handré, like Kobus, they've done this before. They've beaten the All Blacks before. Dion Ferree captaining the All Blacks in the final, absolutely destroying them. Although it was a close game, Dion Ferree put in a mammoth performance to secure that game. And so, yeah, we have these guys. So we should rely on the trusted old heads as well as the youthful talent. And also, let's not forget that there is a Lions game happening tonight, Tuesday, 25th of August, in Joburg, which means that there will only be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3-4 days for the All Blacks team that is not playing against the Lions to go down to Cape Town and to start preparing and whatnot. So if there are any players that are playing against the Lions, they'll only have 3 days to go down to Cape Town, prepare for the next game. So you'd think that maybe they wouldn't play, anybody playing against the Lions wouldn't play against the Springboks, because it would be very, very dangerous, very risky for that player to only have a 3-4 day turnaround between games, or maybe play for a little bit. But anyway, let's not forget that just the logistics of that could be an issue for the All Blacks, although we don't want to win because of logistics. We want to win because we're better, but that is a factor that could play a role. So now we've looked at the negatives, we've seen the mistakes that we've made. Everybody on the internet, including Rassie Erasmus, has explored how the Springboks just messed up and how New Zealand was so good. And on the other side, we can also see the positives that the Springboks have. It's not all doom and gloom. We have an amazing set piece. We have the foundations in order to get the go forward to score points. We just need execution. We just need handling. It doesn't even have to be anything slick and special. I think we're trying to be too slick and special often. We just need to make things stick more than make things spectacular. What we need to look for on Saturday, or at least what I really, really want to see from the Springboks on Saturday, is some calm decision making. I think a guy like Handré Pollard is perfect for this. He's the Iceman. Although his form hasn't been great for the Bulls, and his decision making in particular hasn't been great for the Bulls, I think that he will lock into gear for the Boks this Saturday. He knows how to play New Zealand. He's played and beat them many times before. He will be crucial for this general role of a calm decision maker, putting up bombs in the air, letting our wings do their thing. I mean, Damian Willemse was phenomenal on the high ball. That's also a positive that I missed. Damian Willemse was so good under the high ball, so we have that advantage. The next one is clinical ruck speed. So getting to the rucks, I think Grant Williams was a little bit slow. A lot of people are decking on Grant. I still think he's a phenomenal player, obviously, but he was maybe a little bit slow at getting to the rucks, getting the ball out. And I also think that is because New Zealand was so good at slowing down the ball. Let's not forget that they put a lot of pressure on us. They were nuisances in the ruck, as they so often are. So I think we need to have support runners cleaning out. And I think we're so often focused on trying to get this big hit and cleaning out that we end up just going over the ruck, and New Zealand just kind of take a step back and let us go over the ruck, and then they just come over because we've just flown off our feet, so they just come back over. Anyway, so I think what we need to do is just be disciplined. You don't need to fly into a ruck. You're strong. You're like a guy like Dion Ferree. He's built, okay? A guy like Malcolm Marx, you're not going to get moved easily. So you can go in, make sure you hit the ruck properly, precision more than power, I think. And the last thing is just discipline. I think you could say is maybe a little bit of bad luck, but also a bit of stupidity, just giving away 2 yellow cards so quickly towards the end of the game. you could argue that, yeah, the game was maybe wrapped up, but that's not how we want to finish a game ever. We always want to finish knowing that there's hope, that we could score, that we could put one back on them, that we could do something. The end of last Saturday's game was just so deflating for everyone. And you could see on the players and on the fans and on Rassie himself that it was just disappointment from the 65th minute onwards. And then when we got those 2 yellow cards, it just was made all the more worse because 13 against 15, you're already 10 points down, 15 points down, I'm not sure. So discipline needs to be really, really something. And we can complain about the ref all day long. Of course we can complain about the ref, but it's not going to change the way that the refs manage the rucks, the way the refs manage the offside line, and etc. So yes, we can complain, but we also have to be smart. New Zealand knew how Matt Carley was going to manage the rucks. They knew how they were going to do that, and they took such full advantage of it. They really, really, they just made themselves a nuisance. They were bridging that offside line constantly. They were going for every single ruck. They were trying to jackal over it, which meant that we needed to be on top of it, and we weren't. And we gave away tons and tons of balls. They were ripping, they were stealing it. And honestly, they just outplayed us. Dave Rennie outplayed Rassie, and New Zealand outplayed us. So, although it hurts and stings, and none of us like that because we are the greatest team in the world at the moment, we are the world champions, we shouldn't lose like that. It's not all doom and gloom because we are the world champions, because we are the best team in the world. We have the best players, we have the best coach. We can win this, and I fully believe that we will be able to win this. There's still 3 more tests to go. It's far from over. This is only one slip up of the year so far, and it doesn't have to define our whole series. I see there's a lot of clickbait titles, a lot of rugby journalism saying like, oh, has Rassie lost his spark? Oh, is this the end? No, it's not. It's one game. We needed it. We've been humbled, and now we can move forward. A lot of people are not going to think we're going to win, and that's exactly what we want. We want to be the underdogs. So let's go out there. Let's prove to them who we are. We are the Springboks. We love this team, and let's enjoy ourselves. Don't forget to watch this evening's Lions game and tune in to the All Blacks game on Saturday. Cheers, guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your days. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and have a good one. Cheers.